Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's workshop. We'll give it a couple of minutes as we wait for more folks to join in. Hi, everyone. We'll give it another minute, but while we're waiting, if you do have any questions or comments, please put it in the Q&A section for our presenter. Just one more minute and we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining today's webinar workshop titled E-commerce Security for Small Businesses, Part 2. If you weren't here for the Part 1, which was on Tuesday, the recordings are available on the Tourism Nova Scotia website and the Digiport YouTube channel. A few housekeeping, please remember to put your questions in the Q&A section for our presenter so that he could respond to them. And this webinar is offered in partnership between Tourism Nova Scotia and Digital Nova Scotia through Digiport, a one-stop workshop of interactive services and educational opportunities to help tourism businesses develop digital marketing skills and access professional support to improve their online presence. So today, our presenter is Joe Arbuckle. He's the founder of Arbuckle Media, and he has a great wealth of experience in developing e-commerce website and has keen interest in cybersecurity. So right now, I'll pass it over to Joe.
Thank you, Courage.
Thank you.
All right, let me share my presentation here, and we will get started. So welcome back to e-commerce cybersecurity basics for small business. If you recall yesterday's session, we had looked at an introduction to a lot of the cybersecurity terms and phrases, key types of common attacks and cyber-related events to talk about. And we talked about why small businesses are particularly a target for a lot of these lower level attacks. we talked about best practices for protecting your website, online store, and your overall business's cybersecurity in general. And we talked about SSL certificates, managing payment security, and your obligations and best practices for protecting your customers' data. So I hope that this session will be taking that a step further. So understanding the fundamentals is key to furthering your own education into cybersecurity, into the various types of cyber events and attacks that may you likely have experienced or will experience. And this session is taking it a step further to become a little bit more practical. And we'll look at, and really my hope at the end of the entire workshop is you'll understand, again, the common types of threats, protecting your online store, protecting yourself against phishing attacks, being very proactive and less reactionary or retroactive in your approach, managing employee access to sensitive information, understanding how you can do it, where to do it, how to keep create a data policy, and again, creating a plan for the unfortunate event that you become prey to a bad actor or a hacker or some sort of cyber event or even spam. So we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about, again, going further, a little bit further into phishing, which again is the most common type of cyber event. A lot of it is automated. It's rarely personal. It's very lowbrow, low level, easy to replicate and put through bots. So you're going to, again, understand how to identify and avoid phishing attacks. Some of the best practices for educating employees and customers on phishing prevention. We're also going to talk about managing employee access to sensitive information, the role of employee access in cybersecurity, best practices for managing employee access to sensitive information, and tips for creating and enforcing strong password policies. And we're going to spend the bulk of today on creating a plan for a cyber attack. So of course, in the heat of the moment, when stress, anxiety, or panic set in, it's very difficult to ensure that you've checked all the boxes, followed a proper response plan. So that's why we do this proactively ahead of time when cooler heads can sort of prevail. You are able to create a script essentially to follow with the worksheet that we're going to include and give examples of today. So the plan for the cyber attack should outline what to do if you suspect your business has become the target of a cyber attack. It should offer essentially a script for minimizing damage and how to build your recovery following a cyber event or attack. And finally, it should also sort of codify a list of best practices for creating a cybersecurity incident response plan. So first up, we're going to talk again about phishing today and go a little bit more in depth about how you can actually phish your own business, your own colleagues, employees, management team, the whole works, and the significance of doing that equally across the board. So again, with phishing being so rampant, being rather convincing, again, some easy to spot, some is rather convincing. There are certain red flags to look out for, as we'll discuss, and as we had discussed. Identifying the proper sending address, looking for spelling, punctuation, grammar, SSL certificates on landing pages. Some of them are really convincing, some of them are really good. And a lot of misconceptions are that, younger, potentially more tech savvy people will not fall for it. However, a lot of phishing attempts, again, you're probably subject to thousands in the run of a year, are really convincing. And it's all ages, backgrounds, levels of tech savviness, and levels of expertise will fall, unfortunately, for phishing attacks. And again, it's easy to overlook certain details. Again, some of the details are very minute. And of course, your day gets busy, whether you're running a company or you're on part of the frontline team. You get inundated with emails or requests. Some seem urgent, some not. And of course, it's easy to overlook some fine details and fall prey to a phishing scam. So that's why education, being proactive, and running tests, running your fire drills are going to be a great way to not only educate yourself, but also your team. So first up, we're going to look at finding a phishing test tool that can help you accomplish these goals. So depending on your budget, experience, and comfort level, there are a number of phishing tool options, both free and paid, that can work for you. So I've gone ahead and found some examples, and at the end of the session, we're going to go through the worksheet, the PDF, the fillable worksheet PDF, as well as we'll be sending around a set of links, and I'll include this tool, which we'll get to in a moment, that'll actually help you do this for free. So once you've chosen a phishing test tool, and in this case, we'll talk about one in particular, running an effective phishing test at work can be the difference between an employee who clicks on malicious links or attachments and one who simply reports them and takes the proper steps while being subject to it. And phishing testing is just, it's a necessary process and a necessary evil to fight legitimate bad actors and legitimate cyber threats to your organization. A phishing test is used by security and IT professionals to create mock phishing emails and or landing pages that are then sent to employees. So these types of fake attacks help employees understand the different forms a phishing attack can take, how convincing they can be, the sort of identifying features they have, what to look out for, and avoid clicking malicious links or leaking sensitive data in malicious forms. It'll help employees understand the different forms it'll take. And again, the whole point of phishing test is to educate employees so they can spot and avoid phishing emails in the future, not to negatively reinforce the outcomes of a potential situation. And it's to try and catch them in a mistake without training and informing them in advance would put your IT department or yourselves on the management team in sort of an us versus them scenario, which will prevent you from ever accomplishing your employee cybersecurity awareness goals. Providing training and notification is an important first step because it establishes your test as more than a simple gotcha situation for negligent employees. We're all in this together when it comes to the fight against whether it's phishing or any type of cybersecurity threat. So it's important to create an open dialogue about the ever-evolving landscape of all these different types of threats. So what you should do is, again, wrap this into regular employee communications. Have a regular meeting on this, whether you can afford to monthly, quarterly, even yearly. It's better than it's a baseline. It's somewhere you need to start from, and at least it's something. It's checking the right boxes in the right direction. So present a short training to establish what is or isn't a phishing email. A few tips on what to look out for. Screenshots, as you'll see in this presentation, are great examples of that. Examining the from address, urgent requests that require money transfers, especially from unexpected senders, and notify employees that you're running phishing tests to help prepare them. And again, it's about preparation and it's about running drills, not about scolding employees who simply make mistakes. And that's why we test. And creating a specific company email address, again, another great best practice, in addition to running tests, is creating a phishing@yourcompany.com type of email address where you can catalog these types of routine attempts and types your own specific catalog and inventory of threats that you yourselves as a business have faced. You can set that up in some sort of email inbox or email group that others can see, and create an open dialogue that your employees can contribute to. So I know in my organization, for example, anytime that every employee of mine is encouraged to participate in this by sharing, whether they're sharing a test or they're sharing a real threat, someone usually pretending to be myself, we're sharing that in our internal messaging app. And that really helps us to, again, better understand and see examples and the look and feel of the different, sometimes and often convincing attempts that we're subject to. So let's talk about planning a phishing test. So there are a few rules you should adhere to in order to ensure sort of your own test achieves maximum effectiveness and improves employee cybersecurity behavior over the long term. So in terms of timing, a test should be constructed as a series of phishing simulations, sort of a campaign, not just a one-off, not just a one and done, delivered each month or each quarter. And that's the only way to sort of gauge success and, of course, improvement over time. Because, of course, no employee, regardless of their role or savviness, is going to be perfect all the time. Your campaign should be progressive in terms of difficulty. First test should be fairly simple to identify, simple text, broken grammar. After that, try various angles and different levels of subtlety in your tests, as we'll sort of talk about. And again, build up the credibility of the threat over time. Use different phishing methods, utilize different methods of phishing to give employees multiple opportunities to learn and keep them on their toes. Well, the first email, your first attempt should be fairly basic. Use more social engineering tactics, and again, more convincing manners of speaking, for example, more specific routine requests that an employee would likely receive from you through email or through message, to help identify or to help outline more credible examples of a threat, and identify specific employees or groups within the organization to target with emails they would normally get. So if something is coming from HR or finance, ensure that it's from an appropriate address or what appears to be an appropriate email address, and ask for questions that an HR or finance person would ask, for example. And include, of course, management and ownership as well. It's important to test whether you have senior management or executives, or you're more flat small business with simple ownership, and then frontline employees or some managers. Include them all equally. I mean, everyone is a gatekeeper to the most valuable assets in your business, and often management will get targeted more than others. I mean, we talked about spear phishing, and when your attacker fully understands your role, whether that's through something they've sussed out or through LinkedIn, they'll often know to target you because you have signing authority on your bank account, or you have authority over others to have them act on your behalf. So keeping an eye for that will be, and testing them as well, absolutely crucial. Aside from the fact that they're targets, it's important that other employees know management is partaking in the training, so it helps them take it seriously as well. They're all in the same playing field, and it'll likely increase or improve employee engagement within the training exercises, and provide the team with sort of added motivation, beat your boss in their training scores. And immediately after, so once you've run your first campaign, you've sent it out, immediately after, you're kind of asking yourself, now what? Do we simply just do the same thing again? Since your goal is to improve over time and improve awareness among your employees, your job really only has begun. Build a baseline, reward high performers, educate low performers, and start planning your consistency for your next tests. Since your goal is to improve cybersecurity awareness, again, reporting is critical. So having an open conversation, setting up everyone for success, letting them know that you're looking at specific metrics, like link click rates, the number of employees that leak sensitive data, like entering in a username or password on a false landing page, and the number of employees who were successful reporting a phishing email or reporting spam events to your phishing inbox, for example. And then, of course, circulate the report. Let everyone know how well they've all done. So, the goal really is to learn and improve your testing methods as well. So understanding your report, you may be able to circumnavigate their best practices and see if you can find a way to create new examples of what to look out for. So for first-time offenders, of course, it's okay to simply send an email that notifies them that they erred on the phishing test if they've made a mistake. You should reiterate the importance of cybersecurity and provide more training materials, or suggest that they view the existing training materials you may have, your cybersecurity plan, and let them know that more phishing tests are on the way, and they'll have an opportunity to succeed in the future. So again, even if someone is unsuccessful, you can always reassure them that there'll be more, and they can always improve their sixth sense of sniffing out phishing and illegitimate requests. And again, it's if you follow the guidance sort of outlined and being consistent with it, you've effectively laid the groundwork for a more successful employee base, and making it a part of their routine, again, whether it's monthly, quarterly, and of course on their onboarding process as well. When you're hiring new employees, even if they're frontline and simply only have access to POS systems, making that part of your POS system onboarding as well. A lot of POS systems will have built-in security methods, but of course, social engineering, again, is the easiest way to circumnavigate that. So working with your POS provider in your, in your hotel lobby or your tap room, ensuring that it's a regular part and codified into your onboarding plan. And the managers that are doing that are also understanding it really well and practicing it themselves, and being open and honest about their mistakes and the amount of times that they've clicked a link, and how they've improved over time will also inspire the rest of your team to do the same. And where you can start today is by trying out a platform. One that I've found for you all today is something called Curricula. The great news is it's easy to try. It's very simple to set up. It uses behavioral science techniques like storytelling to kind of jazz up an otherwise potentially boring topic, or something that many people necessarily aren't excited about. And it also contains a phishing simulation experience, so you can test your own employees. So if you'd like to try this, we'll provide a link at the end of the call, at the end of our session today, and you can actually create a campaign to start phishing your own team as easy as sending a few verification emails once you open your account. And again, best of all, it's free for organizations up to 1,000 employees. And there's a lot of great resources here. I'd highly recommend it. Again, it's Curricula. It's difficult to create your own materials, run your own phishing tests. It's a lot of infrastructure or a lot of sort of research that goes into it. So Curricula has done a great job of putting that all in one spot, and making it easy to kind of automate some of the process for you. So if it is only happening once every month or once every quarter, it's even easier to do so now. So once you've set that up, it becomes more routine. And again, it's something that I would say put that on your calendar to have it done, and really follow it yourself. Send everyone, including yourself, attempts. It has a great library sort of repository of examples of different types of prompts and phishing attempts built right into the platform, right into the phishing campaign. So now we'll quickly switch gears and talk about, again, at a high level, managing employee access to sensitive information. And we'll kind of talk about some of the principles that we practice in our own organization, and how you can kind of deploy them as well. So there's several best practices for managing employee access to sensitive information, that sort of need to know basis, or what's also called the least privilege principle. So only granting access to sensitive information to employees who really need it to perform their job duties, whether you're setting up multiple shared Google Drives or Microsoft OneDrives to different departments or groups of employees, who really need the information to do their job. Again, it's sort of creating a need to know basis, and often a lot of information that does get shared or stored doesn't need to be accessible at all times. So regularly defining what is need to know is important too. And again, role-based access control also helps there too. If you have accounts or platforms that you use when you're taking inventory of all the different login credentials that you have, assigning access to sensitive information based on an employee's role within the company, and allowing them to only access the information on devices while on site or at work is also crucial there too. And creating reminders, whether it's while you're doing your quarterly phishing testing, to also review access. Sometimes you have employees who have left who have been offboarded but still have access to a Facebook page or still have access to a OneDrive, and always ensuring that you only allow who absolutely needs to be there access, and limiting that and reviewing that and making it part of your regular onboarding and offboarding practices with employees as well is going to set you up for much better success. Use services that allow you to add user seats rather than sharing passwords or credentials where possible. Not all platforms are going to let you do this, or it's going to cost more to do that on some platforms. So sharing logins, not the ideal state, but of course might be necessary on some, but where it's possible, share individual login access and set yourselves or your management team up as admins. Use multi-factor authentication, as we talked about. So ensure that key platforms, a lot of them are enforcing it now. You're seeing it on, the CRA, banking, more broadly, not only utilized, but enforced without exception. And I would suggest doing the same as well. Monitoring activities. So ensuring that email notifications occur if you receive an unexpected login attempt, or if a new device logs into an account, ensuring that you and your team are seeing those and potentially setting up shared email inboxes for different accounts. So you're able to see and making multi-factor authentication easier on you as well. And have an incident response plan. And we're going to get into that next. Having that incident response plan is going to be key in place of a security breach. By following your own best practices and the ones that we've outlined today, you can really effectively manage employee access to sensitive information and protect it from unauthorized data breaches, whether it's something that's internal or something that is leaked from a phishing attempt as well. So it's a great segue into our the main topic we're going to discuss today in our next and really the final section of today's call, which is creating your response plan for a cyber attack or cyber event. So we're going to talk about defining your cybersecurity attack plan steps. And we have a checklist and a bit of a worksheet I'm actually going to walk us through today, and you'll all receive. And hopefully it's as straightforward as filling out a PDF. And again, having something in place, even if you're not aware of the full scope of it, it may be a thought-provoking exercise to become more aware and catalog your own, your own liabilities, and to really do a deep dive and a deep cleaning of all the different types of liabilities, whether it's hardware or software that are present in your organization, and that again may become a weak link in the chain. So again, planning this now, while there is not an emergency, will prevent you from missing steps under sort of duress and succumbing to the fog of war, which again is when you're in a stressful, anxious situation. It's really difficult to do, but just having a script set up ahead of time is really going to help you take the proper steps to ensuring not only are you aware of the full scope of the threat, you're aware of the damage, and you're also able to contain it and clean it up after the fact. So an ideal high-level plan on how to counteract an attack on your cybersecurity measures would include steps like mobilizing your cybersecurity response team. The first thing on your company should do when an attack is discovered is to sort of mobilize the troops. And it should be a team of ideally cross-discipline professionals trained in protecting your business from these kind of attacks. It's important to that each team member has been properly trained or has some sort of background. You're going to have a mix, and we'll talk about this, a mix of your own internal stakeholders, ownership, management, employees who have access, and potentially outside stakeholders or partners as well. Identifying the type of attack for cybersecurity response team to react appropriately. The first thing you need to do once you're sort of convened the response team is to properly identify the type of attack you're facing. Once you know which type of attack is occurring, you can know where to focus your attention and how to best contain and recover from the attack, because not all attacks are the same or created equally. And again, just identifying which things you need to shut down or regain control of will help you become more efficient in your response as well. You need to know the source as well. Whether it's something, a past employee or something that's a total random external event that's happening. Identifying, knowing where to look for in terms of IP addresses and what to block will be ideal as well when it comes to the next step of containing the breach. So we call it turtling when we're sort of shutting things down, closing the blast doors, assuming the worst and trusting nothing, assuming that all live site files, your code within your content management system, resources, accounts have been compromised and must be sort of quarantined and destroyed or destroyed in terms of files, assuming that you're going to have to back up a website and that your existing site is sort of no longer valid or usable is usually the sort of rule of thumb or the best practice that we want to deploy. Most passive attacks are designed to provide attackers with a persistent backdoor into your systems. So data can continue to be extracted over time, where they can come back in and do more damage later. It's important to identify and shut down all access that attackers might have to your system. And the same is true if your company is the victim of a more active attack. And what you'll do there is really disconnect the affected network from the internet, whether that's your server, temporarily halting your server instance you're hosting, shutting down your website, putting up a holding page or some sort of landing page, disabling all remote access to your network if you have that set up, changing vulnerable passwords and user credentials, password resets. The key is to completely deny access to your system to attackers, and running a backup instance, that sort of thing. Again, assessing and repairing the damage where possible. You'll probably need to run a backup. You'll probably need to look into transaction logs potentially, see where access has occurred, looking at emails for unauthorized logins, and reporting the attack. So if it comes to reporting the attack to law enforcement like the RCMP or your local police department, the RCMP does recommend that you, even if it's a low-level attack, to still report it. It's unfortunately unlikely that anything will be acted upon or even follow up upon. But putting it on their radar, reporting it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center website as well creates a history. It creates trends that can be shared, and sort of your misfortune can help others in the future, or even help your future planning as well. And of course, if you have cyber liability insurance, contact your insurance provider for advice and support as well. And finally, communicating with your customers and learning from the experience. So, being upfront with your customers and transparent can help regain your customers' trust, but it also can regain your team's confidence in your ability to respond to a cybersecurity event or attack. So now we'll quickly go through the worksheet and discuss sort of the topics that we're going to need to outline and give examples for each one. And I think this will be helpful. And again, creating that thought-provoking exercise of, oh yeah, I didn't really think about all the different hardware devices, smart devices in my business or my office, or that my guests have access to. And it creates that sort of thinking through each and every little platform that you have a login for, even if it's a simple as a Canva login for your marketing team, should all be cataloged. And again, creating that catalog does really help in setting you up for looking for your weak links, whether it's duplicate passwords between two different platforms, those sorts of things. So first, establishing your organization's, creating a cybersecurity and data protection policy that governs how to protect data. It keeps you secure and potentially less liable as a business owner or an operator. And it kind of governs how to protect your data, and it keeps accounts secure within your organization. It kind of codifies the best practices into an official policy, and should really cover topics like identifying key personnel, your response team. What is the definition of confidential data? Your policy, whatever it may be, on personal versus company devices, emails, your password management and also password best practices or minimum standards. Your policy on where and when to enforce multi-factor authentication, sharing data, how you share data internally, externally with suppliers, vendors, those sorts of things. What your policy is on remote access. Of course, now in a post-COVID or COVID world, remote access, remote work is possible, thankfully, for a lot of people. But of course, you need to codify best practices around it and how you're going to do it, which platforms or apps you're going to use to make sure that things are always remaining secure. And reviewing the policy with your team regularly and make it part of the employee onboarding process as well. Making it part of your employee handbook or take-home package, and really reinforcing that. Place it somewhere where the greatest number of your team members can readily and easily access it on a daily basis if needed. And ensure that it's followed as prescribed and enforced without exception. Again, it's not about bringing the hammer down on those who violate it, but ensuring that there's always a way that they can improve on their adherence to it. And of course, to help you get started, we'll have a separate sample data protection and cybersecurity policy document that you can use that we actually based our own off of as well. So first, who is the cybersecurity response team? I would include their name, title, department, if that applies. And a business cybersecurity response team would ideally consist of individuals from various departments, IT, legal, senior management, and it should be led by a designated incident response manager. It should also include a representative from the IT department who has some expertise and who's able to sort of handle all matters technical when it comes to a cybersecurity event. However, for most small businesses, you might not have as many of these internal stakeholders, departments, or even expertise in-house. So it's a good idea to have a developer, whether someone who in the past has developed your website or a trusted partner, someone that you've worked with that can act as an external stakeholder and a member of the management team when it comes to your cybersecurity response team. And of course, having someone, a part of the management or ownership team who has the authority to make important decisions, whether that's on communications or important decisions related to data at a moment's notice is critical on your team. So we kind of talked about, again, looking at identifying external and internal stakeholders. So having ownership, managers, members of your marketing team, your trusted website developer, your friendly neighborhood IT support guy or gal. I mean, having someone that's really going to be able to take things or clean things up for you as well, even if you don't have them internally. And identifying who's going to be responsible for what as well. Who owns the exercise, who's going to run it, who's going to communicate what to who. Those sorts of things need to be identified as part of this as well. And that way everyone has a very, very well-defined role right off the hop. Making an inventory of all your security liabilities, your assets, accounts, your hardware, really identifying potential security risks and liabilities, understanding which accounts or platforms people have access to is really key to identifying risks and checking off potential points of entry in the event of an attack. So looking at, listing of every social media account you have, where your website's hosted or your domain's registered, what content management system you use, listing out your payment processors, even things like your WordPress website plugins, if that's what you use, Wi-Fi devices, do you have a guest network? All of the really nitty gritty, cataloging that in long form will help you go down the list in time of need and identify where is this potentially coming from if it is difficult to identify the source. And often it's coming from the front of your website, a weak plugin, something that is outdated, but it could have come from anywhere, and you need to kind of have all possibilities on the table when it comes to identifying your own risks and a cyber event's true source. So on the flip side of this, identifying all the controls and prevention methods you have. So identifying external partners that will help you, looking at software like firewalls, plugins, antivirus and anti-malware software or encryption software, looking at email administration structure, mobile device management, things that you can turn on to shut things off and to sort of have that turtle effect when push comes to shove. Next up, define your reporting plan. So listing all parties and who has a responsibility to do what during a suspected breach. So whether that's communicating to your insurance company, to law enforcement, to vendors or suppliers, whether you suspect an email has been compromised, for example, do vendors or suppliers need to be notified that you have an email account breach, and that, to be wary of or to call to identify invoices or attachments sent before someone opens it. Those sorts of things. Of course, in the moment, it can be difficult. It can be a difficult pill to swallow, but it's important to be transparent and to be upfront about it. And if people are notified ahead of time, of course, they won't be able to blame you if they're receiving emails or their own employees are receiving emails and opening them from a compromised account within your own domain or organization. And create a post-attack communications plan. So really define which communication channels you'll use, which will be your sort of official methods to communicate with customers, to communicate internally, whether that's getting together virtually so you can see everyone, if someone's email account has been compromised, or getting on the phone, identifying, who will be responsible for what, and taking that a step further and getting really specific about, your canned replies or your canned messages if you're having an event, who's to approve statements should they come out, who's to communicate and when to communicate to customers, or put it on the website or take down the website, and what messages to say. Having that sort of canned ahead of time will really help not only in your efficiency of rolling out the process, but again, also have a much more concise and cleaner statement ahead of time. And finally, your documentation plan. Once something happens, creating a sort of post-mortem. And in our case, that's what we would do. We would create a post-mortem, all the things that we know that have happened, that we suspect might have happened, who did what did we try, what seemed to work, what didn't work, create a more efficient response in the future should it happen again. Even if it was something that there wasn't a full breach, or if it was just an attempted breach, creating a report of it, putting that somewhere where people can access. And that way it creates a history of the different types of trends or different types of activities your organization has been subject to, whether it's one person that's they're targeting, an owner, a senior manager, someone, even an external stakeholder that they're trying to impersonate, for example, different types of IP addresses, those sorts of things will be great to provide should you have a well-documented post-mortem exercises. It's again the responsibility of the management to publish the report and circulate it when complete. I would suggest making this part of your documentation plan, because again, it has to be driven from the top down, and encouraging others to, whether or not they're members of the response team, to contribute to the report. Whether they see, hear, do. It can be simple as putting it on your letterhead and putting the date on it. It doesn't have to be anything overly official or diligently regulated. It just has to be something that in the immediate aftermath, and again, identifying the deadlines for creating the documentation of a postmortem for a cybersecurity event. In the immediate aftermath, for us, it's no later than 2 to 3 days after are we meeting on something. While it's still fresh in our mind, and we're still able to better recall our actions and our reactions. And of course, the review plan. So reviewing this whole plan, how often will you do it? Who will be involved? Involving anyone who touches customer data, has access to any account, of course, in any capacity. Reviewing it during a staff meeting every quarter, if time allows, or ideally every month, or of course, doing it more periodically, more frequently, if you're having more events occur. And circulate it via an all hands email thread as well, circulating your plan, also your reports and your documentation, should, making it part of an onboarding process as well between managers and even frontline staff. So everyone's in the know and is at least slightly more educated than yesterday on what to do should an event happen. So now we'll talk about where you can start today, this very day. So creating your response plan, as we just went through, it doesn't have to be anything overly technical, unless, of course, you have technical abilities or technical specifications that you need to operate under. Choosing a password manager, like a LastPass or some of the free ones that we spoke about in the last session. Setting up and enforcing multi-factor authentication on all accounts, or as many as is reasonably possible. Starting these processes today are going to help quite a bit. They're going to help make it a regular part, and it's going to, it's important to, identify and really feel that cybersecurity is not something that is only for people with a security background. Myself, I don't have a security background. I'm a self-taught developer who realized the importance of a certain set of best practices. These very best practices that we really deploy and exercise, almost every day when it comes to multi-factor authentication, for example. Onboard and train employees using a platform. So again, a platform like Curricula, which is free up to 1,000 employees, which many small businesses will fall under, is a great free resource for people to set up, and it's very easy to set up too. And setting, of course, regular calendar events to meet with your team. So just to come from the session today and set things up once and sort of set it and forget it, it's not going to work like that, unfortunately. It's an ever-evolving landscape, and ensuring that you have regular calendar events to meet with your team, whether that's quarterly or monthly, and review your methods and practices for an event, regularly phishing them, regularly having discussions about updates to your plans, having going over the plan just as you would an occupational health and safety plan or a fire drill, understanding, again, that practice makes perfect and that, you have to start somewhere. So I would recommend that these would be the immediate steps that you would take. And again, at the end of the session, you'll be provided with the cybersecurity basics worksheet to create your own cyber attack plan or response plan. We'll also circulate our cybersecurity and data policy template, as well as a list of different platforms to try, including Curricula, some VPNs, password management tools, encryption software that is free or has a free plan or option that you can use to cost effectively deploy today better cybersecurity best practices. And thanks everyone for attending my session today. I really appreciate your proactivity. I think everyone here getting through these two sessions should be very proud about taking the right next immediate steps to making your organization a more savvy and safe and secure business.
Thank you, Joel, for that great presentation.
Happy to stick around and answer any questions anyone might have. That's that may have come up.
Please, if you do have it, oh, I think there's a question that just popped up. Let's see. Oh, okay. So, so if you're interested in learning more or setting up a meeting with Arbuckle Media to discuss your cybersecurity or digital challenges, you can sign up for a free one-on-one consultation with Joel or any of our digital service providers via Digiport. It's nsdigiport.ca. For our upcoming events, we have another webinar coming up on February the 9th at 10 a.m. It's titled Email Marketing to Boost Your Business. And this is going to be presented by Maria Chuko from Playground Creative Agency. And so, like we said earlier, this session has been recorded, and the part one was also recorded on Tuesday, and you can find that on the Tourism Nova Scotia website or on the on Digiport YouTube channel. I think another question has popped up. Okay, so Andrew here says, I was advised against the password manager like LastPass, as if compromised, that gives free reign to everything. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I would definitely disagree. I mean, consider the alternative is, the alternatives being using one strong password across many different accounts. That's bad practice. Is there always a liability? Yes, unfortunately. But using a password management tool, we in particular use LastPass. There's a couple of great features about it. One, if you've used duplicate passwords over any 2 accounts, it'll warn you. It'll suggest changing those. So it's more than just generating secure passwords and then saving them. And then 2, of course, if any particular website or platform that you use has been involved in a data breach or a password leak, it'll notify you of those and prompt you to change those as well. If you're going to use a password manager, of course, again, it's not that they are perfect or without their own liabilities. It is a best practice to use them. I would definitely argue that they are a necessary evil in a way, but at the same rate, they are a great tool. And locking your password manager down, really like Fort Knox is going to be crucial. Again, it comes down to the overall best practice of multi-factor authentication, ensuring that we use it, and of course there's seats available in LastPass. So I'm, for example, the super admin of ours, so I understand the ins and outs of it, but also can regulate access to everyone else, and they can't regulate mine. Again, it comes down to deploying all sets of best practices. Multi-factor authentication is crucial. You're going to get text and or email or authentication app requirements every time you log in, and periodically while you use it as well. So, is it a perfect solution? No, but it certainly beats any available alternative. I would never reuse the same password, more than once. I would never have a weak password. I think there's this cool tool you can see, like you can type in your password. I'll have to find the resource, but you could probably Google it. There's a tool where you could tell how many years or machine years it'll take to break a password. And I mean, when you're talking about 16-digit numeric with symbol passwords that you can generate through LastPass, for example, it would take thousands of years to break most of the passwords that I would use, even if multiple machines are learning it theoretically, to break it through brute force attempts. Whereas remembering one password, all it takes is one data breach. And again, it's not necessarily best practice. Trying to remember a bunch of very difficult passwords, also something that's not very easy to do. So if you are truly setting really great passwords, most of my passwords I don't necessarily know. But also on the same hand, they're never going to be, that lock is not going to be picked very easily. So it's more than just a password management tool that you should look for. So overall, that's my my long-winded response of saying that I would definitely disagree with that advice. Thanks, Andrew, for asking.
Thanks so much, Joel. We still have a few more minutes, so if you have any more questions, you can still drop it in the chat or in the Q&A so that we could ask before he leaves.
Yeah, I see a question here from Daniel previously, which again, I know that I went through a worksheet today as part of this session. So yes, that will be circulated via email to all participants here for free. The worksheet, a PDF with some links to some of the free resources and paid resources that I've recommended, as well as the slides themselves, and then the sample policy. So I'll be sending that off to tourism directly after this call, and I think they or Digital Nova Scotia will be circulating it. So thanks for checking in.
Thank you so much, Joel. So so look out for our upcoming webinars. And if you want more information, you can stay connected with TNS via their websites that's showing on the screen at the moment. And don't forget the recording, the session has been recorded and it's going to be uploaded on the TNS website and on the Digitport YouTube channel. So if there are no more questions, I could say thank you all for taking time out to join us today, and we wish you all a great day.
Thank you.